Hi, oddly, I'll be introducing myself next. Just a little bit of my background as it pertains to this presentation. I spent nearly a decade in the military as an armed reconnaissance helicopter pilot. And during that time, I watched as we began digitizing the battlefield, and video and sensors and the information they were giving grew exponentially. And it was really kind of a fascinating space to be in. And so in founding 615, I was fortunate enough to find a great team that shared my passion for using technology to change some lives. And so hopefully this talk will give you a little bit of an idea of how we're doing that. So take it away, me.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'd also like to thank Brain Exchange for finding a way to bring us together to share our thoughts and share some ideas during these challenging times. As mentioned, I am Rich Ryan. I'm the CEO of 615 Technologies. And I'm here today to talk about lessons that we've learned from the front lines and how augmented reality and heads-up displays can truly ease the burden of our essential workers. First, I'd like to introduce 615 Technologies to those who are not familiar with us. We've been in the business of delivering heads-up display and augmented reality solutions to users operating in the world's most demanding environments. And I'm really proud of our team, and our company is proud to really focus on the goal of providing solutions that help protect lives, enhance performance, and improve safety no matter what mission they're performing. There's a few things that we know. In times of crisis, the greater the burden, the greater the stress. And more importantly, it's the frontline workers that carry the heaviest load. We often talk about pressures on our economy or pressures on companies. But what we often forget is that those pressures ended up being borne on the shoulders of our frontline workers who are executing the day-to-day tasks. What I'm going to walk you through is how our technology has evolved to address these types of pressures and to reduce stress amongst people performing critical tasks at critical times. So here's an example of our problem: delivering complex information to soldiers operating in a battlefield. What you're seeing here is a ground soldier who is communicating with a fighter aircraft, a pilot, and a command post. The pilot and the drone are sending video to a command post. The command post is talking via radio to the ground operator, trying to describe what they're seeing on that screen. So clearly that is all confusing, and obviously it can result in some pretty dramatic failures. And it's what the Department of Defense calls the fog of war. Now, I'm obviously not going to read you the script, and this is only a small segment of the 4-hour-long transcript from a mission similar to the one I just described. But I think there's two lines that really jump out at us when we think about what type of communication breakdown can happen. So we have a drone operator that says, "Roger, those two vehicles, they appear to be moving south." We have the ground soldier that says, "We are now tracking 3 vehicles, so stand by." So what that tells us is they don't even know that they're looking at the same vehicles. And unfortunately, in this situation, it did lead to tragedy. So what do we do about this? This really comes to one of our first lessons. First, get the data directly to the person that needs to take action on it. So what you're seeing here is using a head-mounted display, and it's one of our earlier products called a TAC-Eye, where we can now take the video data that those aircraft are seeing, and rather than pushing it to a command post and then trying to communicate via radio, now that ground soldier can see exactly what that aircraft is seeing while still being able to look out on the battlefield and verify what the aircraft is looking at is what he is looking at. But as you can see here, there's a bunch of information on there that this operator doesn't necessarily need. So we asked ourselves, could we simplify it even further and further reduce cognitive load? And that's what we did. By using augmented reality, we were able to filter the noise and simplify the information. Here, what you're seeing is taking the information that you would normally see on that video and converting it to graphical representations and only showing that operator the points in space that he needs to see. So we wanted to take that one step further because information changes. So I'd like to show you a short video that shows how we can dynamically introduce the data in real time. So here what you're seeing is a soldier performing a land navigation route, and you can see how the information is changing and updating as they move. It's telling them what checkpoint they're at. As they turn their head, it's rotating the information to the next checkpoint. And you can see how we can do that real time and create a very simple format to do it. So, our key lessons learned. Get the information to the person that needs to act on it. Filter the information to eliminate the noise. Simplify that data in a user-friendly interface to minimize cognitive load. So what does that mean for us today? Well, warehouses, fulfillment, and distribution centers, they are the new front line. During this global pandemic, we have gone from shopping to surviving, and these workers are responsible for getting us the goods that we need. From 2017 to 2021, it was forecast that e-commerce sales worldwide would grow by nearly 20%. In 2013, there were 180,000 workers employed in warehousing and storage sector. That number grew to 1.2 million workers in 2018. We already had a system at stress. And it was one of the things that at 615, we had been working on because the pressure was already daunting. But that was all before COVID. And then the pandemic hit. What you're seeing here is year-over-year growth in e-commerce revenue. So from April of 2019 to April of 2020, e-commerce revenue grew by 139%, which led to a huge spike in the demand for warehouse handlers. In March alone, the demand for warehouse handlers grew by 699%. But what does this really mean? Well, the first thing that jumps out is our current workers are doing the job of many. So how do we think about the impact that that has on those warehouse handlers? Well, clearly it's causing significant anxiety, significant stress, not unlike some of the stresses we see that are borne by the frontline soldiers on the battlefield. So we really wanted to address that. So what you're looking at here is a standard fulfillment pick list. Lots of words, lots of numbers, lots of lines. They're fundamentally looking at their day's worth of work. They continue to refer to this as they walk through their job. And whether they're looking at it on a piece of paper or a terminal or host device is somewhat irrelevant. It's the way in which we present that information. So we took those same principles and we applied them to the warehouse worker. What you're seeing on the left is a graphical representation of the job they need to do at that moment at that shelf. We took that and we presented it in a heads-up display. That's a see-through display that allows them to maintain hands-free work and protects their safety so they have awareness of what's going on around them. And on the right, you're seeing basically a view of exactly what they see, how that's overlaid on the real world. But I think it's still really hard to explain until you see it in action. So I'd like to show you another video of how this works on a warehouse floor. So what you're seeing here is we can direct this worker to move over one shelf. She can then verify that she's in the right spot. And now it's presenting which bin she needs to pick from. She clicks on the bin and it shows her the new information she needs, which is she has to pick 10 items. Now it uses the head tracker in the HMD to alter her view, and it tells her how many of those 10 items to put in each of those 3 bins. As she clicks them, it verifies that it's green, and she's good to go. So what are the results of all this? we found that it increases worker productivity by up to 24%. And we do that while still reducing cognitive load and burden. As importantly, we've reduced training time by 90%. And we've done that not because this is a training tool, it's because we have fundamentally altered the way they do their job. So it's so much simpler to learn. And that is really important, particularly given the crisis we're facing today. Because what that means is as we bring on this new army of workers, we are able to get them up to speed faster and thereby accelerating the pace at which we can reduce the load of our workers today. In addition, that time of training is very stressful historically. So when we reduce that, we also reduce employee loss and increase retention because we lose fewer people during the training process. So we're all done, right? You know, we've solved the problem, but not exactly. Because what we found in working with this is we found a whole new set of lessons through our new frontline workers. And probably most importantly is that whatever productivity gains we get by implementing this new technology has to be shared across the board. We can't introduce new stresses or new pain points to the worker while we're addressing the original pain points. So in order to do that, we really have to incorporate the frontline worker to make sure that we are understanding those potential pain points. And it really did lead to some interesting lessons for us. First of all, ergonomics. Really critical to create a lightweight system that's comfortable that they can wear all day. It's also important to be able to have some adjustability. So if my left eye is bad or my right eye is bad, I'm able to flip from one side to the other and be comfortable doing my job. Second is personal preferences. So everyone's different. So to be able to make sure we're delivering different nose pieces and different head straps and other things that allow them to really customize what they're doing is very critical. Health and safety. We did not want to do anything by introducing this technology that would negatively impact health and safety. So some of the things that we've done is make sure there's no battery on the head, there's no Wi-Fi transmitter on the head. Things that some of the competitive products out there actually do, we wanted to take away. Reliability, we always think of uptime, but here what we're talking about is if this fails 3 or 4 times a shift, it's just going to introduce a whole new stress. They're going to feel they're behind and they've got to run over to a station and get a new one. So reliability is really key. And finally, privacy. You know, corporations are extremely concerned with privacy, but the individual worker is really concerned with privacy. They want to know that whatever information is coming off this device is not somehow going to be used for nefarious purposes. So in closing, by taking the lessons we've learned from the front line in the past, taking the lessons we've learned in the warehouse, and continuing to learn lessons as we go, you know, we are really convinced that head-worn displays and augmented reality can continue to help solve some of the most challenging situations that we see today and that we'll see in the future. And they can continue to find ways to protect lives, ease the burden of the worker, and increase safety. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, so I get to answer my own questions, which makes life easier for me. We have a couple of questions. One was, at what point do we make jobs so simple that it's agonizingly boring and not fun? And what techniques do you employ to maintain engagement and a feeling of progression, happiness, and satisfaction? It's an interesting question. I think that our first goal isn't necessarily to make their jobs fun. It's to make them reduce their stress and their anxiety. And I think that in of itself is a huge step. Whether that makes their job fun or not, well, we'll have to kind of see what we do on our next round of augmented reality. And then Nadine asked, what headset did you deploy to? It actually is our hardware. It's our headset. I can show you what our headset looks like. So this is a device that plugs into a host device that's already integrated into a company's warehouse management system. We did some partnership with a large OEM in that space to work together to figure out what the right headset was, what the hardware ramifications had to be, and truly create an enterprise-grade device where we eliminated things like batteries and Wi-Fi transmitters. We made sure we protected peripheral view. We made it so you could immerse it in a solution for cleanliness. So there were a whole host of human factor considerations that went into developing that particular headset. So I think broadly speaking, let's see, there's a bunch of other questions here. What role does spatial audio play for you? Oh, there's a few more questions, I'm sorry. Spatial audio is interesting. We currently have not experimented with spatial audio, though we've done some stuff in the military space where we're integrating our own head-mounted display with spatial audio that they're using. So within Department of Defense, they have attempted to launch spatial audio where an operator typically might be listening to 3 different radios. So what they've done is they've tried to obviously directionalize those things and know if someone's on a radio, they might be behind them and to the left, in front of them to the right. And with our augmented reality solution, it basically just adds on to that by showing that person back to their left or in front of them to the right at 100 yards. But spatial audio has not been integrated into our, into the HMD itself. A couple more questions. Any voice command and control? Yes. So within our device, we have a microphone. We also have obviously a 9DOF tracker that allows you to use actually as an input device if you want. Our goal, though, is to really focus on starting a job and using a natural interface that they're accustomed to. So where you see the warehousing use case, everything is driven by what they're scanning. It's not tracking their location in the warehouse. It just knows when it scans a rack, it obviously knows exactly where they're at and what information to present to them. We have done warehouse working where we're integrating voice control as well. And we're also integrating voice control where there's exceptions to the rule or you have to fix something. So, yeah, so hopefully that answered your question. I don't know who else has any more questions, but I think we can wrap up. We have a little extra time, so I think we're going to take a little bit of a break before the next presentation. And of course, if